or I was going to actually first tell you guys how to make the mushroom teas, the chaga tea. That's another thing. Chaga is one of the most beneficial things that you can begin using to get your health back on track because it restores jing levels. Jing levels, ladies and gentlemen, are directly related to our lifespan. It has a lot to do with the health of our parents when we were conceived and what we got from their genetic information. Jing is part of the traditional Chinese medicine system, but it translates essentially to your essence, your primal essence. It has a lot to do with your genetics, and most people's health here in the Matrix has been run down, and the people have things like chronic fatigue because their jing levels are so low. Consuming things like chaga helps you get your jing levels back up. This is a very concentrated food. The chaga is incredibly filled full of zinc, ladies and gentlemen. Here's a piece. Essentially, you want to try to find chaga, or shaga as many people call it, that has a lot of the black on it. Let me pull out some other pieces, but you'll notice some of these pieces are pretty bare. There's a little bit of black on here. I use both the black and the non-black pieces. So what I'll do, ladies and gentlemen, is I'll chop this into a bunch of little pieces to increase the surface area. Once it's chopped up, I'll run it through a coffee grinder, because if you try to run this stuff through a coffee grinder without breaking it down first, it's going to probably ruin your coffee grinder. And then I'll take my chaga. I'll show you guys exact proportions in a video because I usually eyeball it. And then I'll brew my chaga on about a little less than medium until it boils. And then once it starts to boil, I'll turn it down to about 2 and cover it and leave it cooking for about 4 hours. Then I'll let it cool, strain the chaga out, and then I'll put this into my coffee maker and brew my coffee with the chaga water. This allows me to saturate my coffee with massive amounts of jing energy and zinc and things like phosphorus and non-radioactive cesium. So the medicinal mushrooms are here to aid us in our journey, ladies and gentlemen. They are, in my opinion, much stronger than the herbs, the plant foods. Or I wouldn't say the plant foods. The mushrooms are stronger than the herbs. Although they're super herbs, things like a jiaogulan, schizandra. What is another super herb? Snow lotus, lycium. There are certain foods out there that are profoundly potent and filled full of healing constituents, but the mushrooms, given the circumstances that we're currently in, ladies and gentlemen, due to the stranglehold that the Matrix has us in, the mushrooms are probably the greatest thing that you can use right now in tandem with the Shilajit. And I also recommend taking the K-Pax Immune or some other quality multivitamin. In this video, I'm going to show you how I prepare chaga tea so that I can make chaga coffee. This is a really simplified method. There's more complicated methods out there, and there's more complicated methods that I use as well for extracting the chaga. But with that aside, I just want to say that this is a really simple method. I use this frequently to infuse my coffee with chaga. First and foremost, I wanted to let you guys know that chaga is something that I'm a firm believer in the power of. This is an amazing healing substance filled full of zinc, filled full of jing, filled full of a lot of life force enhancing properties, things that can help you retrieve energy that you've lost. I'm going to talk more about chaga, exactly what it is, where it grows, etc. in the near future. But for now, I'm just going to, tell you guys how I make chaga tea so that I can put it or make coffee out of it. So as you know, I love coffee. I've been drinking coffee for years, but I only consume coffee if it's infused with things like medicinal mushrooms, algae. There's no reason why you shouldn't be infusing your coffee with things that are beneficial for you. Coffee by itself is a rather acidic substance, and if you can start every morning, and most people start their mornings with coffee, but if you start your morning with coffee filled full of herbs, or what I like, the medicinal mushrooms, you are going to turn your morning ritual into a health promoting ritual. So drinking coffee by itself, in my opinion, is a no-no. Drinking coffee or super coffee, coffee that's infused with things, that's how you turn the morning coffee ritual into a beneficial ritual. And as I've said before, and I'll continue to say, the first thing that you should do in the morning is something good for your health, because it's the first action that you take during the day that kind of maps out the second action or what you're going to do afterwards. That's why it's crucial that you make your bed, brush your teeth, practice hygiene, start your day with a beneficial ritual, whether it be prayer or drinking a cup of mushroom tea, or what I like to do, mushroom coffee. So again, this is a really simple method. I have some chaga here. I took about 3 pieces this size, and I chopped them up with a knife into small pieces to increase the surface area. I put them into this water, which, God, I should have measured it. This is a rather large pot. It's a little less than half full. I would say, I don't really know how much water that is. This is just, you don't have to have exact measurements, ladies and gentlemen. With the chaga, you're not going to do any harm by adding a little too little or a little too much. You don't have to add a ton, but 3 pieces this size in this amount of water is a relatively strong extraction, in my opinion. I could have probably gotten away with doing 1, but what I end up doing, ladies and gentlemen, is after I use my chaga chunks and I brew my tea, I throw them in the freezer in a plastic bag, and then when I need to make more chaga tea, I just throw the frozen pieces, the frozen chunks, into the water and bring it back up to a heated temperature. And I do that sometimes 5 or 6 times before the water stops darkening. That's when you know that you should toss your chaga chunks out, when it doesn't show any color. So some of the mushroom or some of the chaga in here, ladies and gentlemen, has been used 3 or 4 times or cycled 3 or 4 times, and that's why there's a little bit of, it's not as dark as it was the first time I cooked it. It's a beautiful color though, check that out. So I took these chunks, I brought it up to a boil, let it boil for like 1 minute, and then I turned it down, covered it, and let it simmer for like 4 hours. There's a lot of, bro science out there about how you shouldn't boil chaga, ladies and gentlemen. I've done it multiple different ways. I find that this way works just as fine. I've actually even made chaga tea where I've boiled it on medium and with it partially covered for 4 hours, and those extractions were even stronger than the simmering extractions. Most people think that chaga is going to get damaged if you don't simmer it and all this other stuff. I think that's a lot of bro science, although I continue to experiment with both methods. This is a simmering method, but I've boiled it before. It works just fine. That's my own personal opinion. So do what you want with your chaga. Excuse me. So I've boiled this, or I've brought this up to heat. I boiled it, cooked it, or turned the heat down and simmered it for probably 2.5, 3 hours, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. Ideally, you want to at least do an hour and then cover it and let it cool. But the longer the better, in my opinion. Some people do this in a slow cooker. I find that this method is just fine. The important thing is that you get the stuff into your system. Stop trying to find the exact alchemical, recipe to make chaga tea. Just make it. Experiment. Be your own, be your own boss. So I'm going to let this cool now after cooking for probably, I'm going to estimate 2.5 to 3 hours. I'm going to let this cool, and then I'm simply going to strain the chaga chunks out, folks, throw them in the freezer, and then once this liquid is cool, I'm going to put it into my coffee maker, and just instead of putting water in my coffee maker, I'm going to put the chaga in there. So some people like to use a French press. I use a French press from time to time. I have a family here, and we all drink coffee, so making French press coffee in the morning for multiple people at 5 in the morning after I've woken up, sometimes I need the convenience. I just need to hit the button and it makes the coffee for me in my Mr. Coffee. So I just put the chaga tea after it's cool into the coffee maker, turn it on, let it drain, and you're good to go. Ideally, what you would do is you'd make this the night before or the day before and then serve it chilled. I'm not a huge fan of hot coffee. I always put ice cubes in it. But yeah, really simple, you guys. You can also add cordyceps mushrooms to this. I would advise adding cordyceps after the coffee's been brewed, though, and it's infused with everything. You can add reishi, turkey tail, maitake. The medicinal mushrooms infuse very well into the coffee, ladies and gentlemen. There's a strong synergy between the medicinal mushrooms and coffee. I also like algae coffee, but most people are going to think that sounds disgusting. Simple recipe, definitely not the best method of extraction, or using a coffee maker with all the garbage plastic isn't the greatest thing either, ladies and gentlemen, but we're human. Do the best you can. Fit this stuff into your schedule. Make health your number one priority. Wake up and make the first thing you do a healthy thing, and you will find that over time you'll have multiple different things that come. It'll be easier to fall into a habit of doing multiple things in the morning that are beneficial for your health. And we all know that input equals output. The more you take care of your health, the better results you're going to get, and before you know it, you're going to feel better, you're going to be leaner, cleaner, your reflexes are going to be better. There's just no amount of words can express just how evolutionary taking care of your health is with the natural herbs, the mushrooms, the supplements. Become your own personal health insurance policy, ladies and gentlemen. Peace be with you. Quick little addendum here, folks, and please excuse my dirty stove. You may be wondering what's in this mason jar. This is a tonic that I've been consuming every night that I make, and it consists of 2 teaspoons of rock rose or cistus incanus, one of the most powerful antiviral herbs in this dimension. I'm going to have to make a video just on cistus incanus because it is absolutely incredible. I probably have a half a gallon of homemade cistus incanus tincture here. I'm a huge fan of this particular herb. Again, it's also known as rock rose. And then I've got a pinch of pau d'arco bark and about 4 pieces of olive leaf. Incredible. This stuff tastes so good. It literally smells to me like Sprite. Cistus incanus has a sweet flavor, and you should always add stevia to this, according to Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, because there's a synergy between the two when you add stevia, and it acts on Lyme disease, pathogens, viruses, etc. very well. The two are very synergistic. But look at that color, ladies and gentlemen. You're still drinking soda pop? Look at what I'm drinking. Why aren't you consuming stuff like this? This is an alchemical potion, ladies and gentlemen. This is an evolutionary elixir. Look at the color on that. Peace be with you.